Hello ladies and gentlemen, Panzer here, and today we're taking a look at Homeworld Deserts of Kharak. Now this is a game that has been generating a little bit of buzz around the internet, mainly because of that name, Homeworld. And this is supposedly set as a prequel to the Homeworld series. So this is well before we have all the fleets in space and so on. So we're on this planet called Kharak, which is slowly being overtaken by desert. So this is kind of a departure gameplay-wise from the rest of the Homeworld series. So before we begin, I'm going to quick look at the options menu. Now, just so you're aware, everything is turned up to high, or ultra even in most cases. So this is at the absolute highest settings possible. Sound settings, separate sound sliders, of course. You can actually turn this up, I think. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I just want to explain what that is. Voice count. So these are the number of sounds that can be played at one time. Now, you might not think that that's a big deal in RTSs because, of course, it's all just unit responses. But what actually happens as well is there are also battle chatter. You have background voices as well that occur during combat, and even at idle they do sort of talk to each other and so on. Which is very nice to see, and it's also contextual, so even in the campaign there are separate dialogues for that, and it does recognize the individual vehicles talking and so on, which is a very nice touch. It's a lot of very nice small details here. These controls that I see here, I think are rebindable, but I can't seem to do any of that. Here, I'm clicking on things and I can't seem to rebind it. So if it is rebindable, it's probably not done within the game itself. Of course, this is a pre-release version that is just for press, so if that does change in the release version, then you can just ignore this bit. Gameplay-wise, you have not much here, really. It's all what you'd expect. You have some controls over whether you want tactical mode on or off. You have camera zoom controls, and you've got panning speeds and so on. You can even change the language from here as well, which is interesting. You can change the language, but you can't rebind the controls. I'm not sure what's going on with that. And, of course, there is a fully fleshed out campaign. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to skip over the campaign. Just know that the campaign is actually pretty well done. There's some very nice cutscenes and things in there, and a lot of very nice little details. What we're going to do is going to jump into a skirmish match, so I can show you what's going on. So, story-wise, we have the Coalition versus the Gaussian. Now, the Gaussian are sort of your, they're basically the Kharak's Greenpeace type people. They want the artifacts and the planet to be left alone, and they view the Coalition as invaders, and they actively want to stop the Coalition from seeking out the stars, as they call it, which basically means they don't want them to have spacefaring technology. Right, so they're a little bit strange. Now, these are the Gaussian right here, and they are mostly made up of hovering units, whereas the Coalition are kind of your conventional tracks and wheels type of deal. So, we have fully customizable colors here, of course, different colors, different trims. I've set mine up to be sort of like the GDI from Command & Conquer 3, which looks a bit strange on the Gaussian, I'll admit, but on the Coalition it does seem to suit them quite nicely. And of course there are some skins, although that doesn't seem to do anything right now. So of course, when this game releases, maybe that'll happen. So we're going to jump straight into a match here, and not that many maps available to me right now. So I'm going to go over to the Taurin Crater. I think there's a map that I haven't played before. I'm going to add one AI enemy and just put us on easy so I can talk you through what's going on. We'll put them as Gaussian because why not? And we should be good to go. We can, of course, change any of these maps to be team or free-for-all, and we can have the different win conditions here. So the minimum that we can have is total annihilation. So annihilation means you need all units to be destroyed, even if they just happen to be a salvager or even just a simple light strike vehicle. You need to kill everything. Carrier annihilation means killing the carrier will win the game as well. And this is an interesting mode here. I don't know if this is in the previous Homeworld games, so I do not have too much experience with that. But there are artifacts on the world, and you can go and capture those. So I'm going to leave this on so we can actually see what that is. So we're going to jump straight in. Loading times vary depending on the map, as far as I can tell. Some are a little bit longer than others, but generally it's not particularly long. Alright, here we go. So we've just loaded in. Tauren Crater appears to be sort of snowy, actually. This was...
Multiple artifact signals have been detected within target range.
Of course, this could just be white sand. I'm not sure. I was expecting this to be some sort of desert.
PDA active. RUs identified.
Alright, so we have two different... Let me just turn the sound down just a little bit so I can hear myself. So, these are the two resources we have. We have construction units, and I believe the other one is resource units. These are CUs and RUs, respectively, and different units take up different amounts of things. So, of course, we probably want more of them on CUs, actually. Now, notice I clicked on that one, but it automatically switched over to that, and that's because we have a maximum number, if you look at this, out of 2, of how many can be collecting from each resource point. Now, the UI is very, very similar to Homeworld, of course, slightly adjusted so that it works within this field, and there's a lot of things at play here that I'm going to talk about. So, right now I'm going to grab light assault vehicle fabrication. This up here is our research area, so right here, this is the engineering section, which will allow us to build more things, and these are the upgrades. So some of these are for the carrier, and some of these are for other units, such as our support cruiser. There is a sort of tech tree here as well, so researching this, as soon as this completes, you'll actually see what happens there. So we can also build a base runner, which is what we need for this type of mode, because the artifacts, if I'll just jump into sensor mode by pressing spacebar there, this over here is a wreck, which we need to gather resources from, but the artifacts are actually located around the world right here. So we've got one up here, one here, and one here, and then these will need to be transported back to the extraction zone. If the vehicle carrying the artifact, like the enemy's already grabbed one, if it's destroyed, that artifact is destroyed with it. You can't steal it from them, it will just be destroyed and it has to be respawned. Which can lead to some very, very, well, I guess drawn out games when you have an ultimate stalemate waiting for things to happen. So that's the thing that's happening there. So we're going to send this base runner over here to grab this over there. Now, base runners are not particularly fast compared to a lot of other units, so they do need protection. They can sort of defend themselves slightly, but their units are, well, their weapons are not particularly strong, so they're probably going to get killed doing that. Alright, so let's turn that off for now. Incidentally, if we... Whoa, that's freaking out in a big way. The tactical mode is freaking out for some reason at the moment. It's kind of not sure what it wants to do. So we're being attacked by light strike vehicles at the moment, and gonna send these salvages over here. So we've got one base runner collected there, and its speed does get reduced quite significantly actually when we pick up an artifact, so there's something to bear in mind. Doesn't look like they're chasing us, it looks like they might just be retreating right now. Alright, so they've actually taken one, so they have 1 out of 5 artifacts retrieved now. Okay, so these bulkheads here are actually resource points, but they don't unlock until we actually destroy them, so we need to actually unlock them by dropping a demolitions charge there, and there we go, we've got salvageable resources. Oh, they are actually attacking us now. Good thing I can actually deploy these here, so I'm going to bring the carrier just a little bit closer so it can use its turrets. Now, one thing that they have added, which I don't think was in previous Homeworld games, is the idea of power distribution. Oh, we've actually lost that artifact. Yeah, the AI is actually really strong, even though it's that easy. So, that's something to bear in mind. I'm gonna put one more into turrets. So, what this is here, this is actually a power distributor. I can add points or take away points, and you can see what that does is it allows several things to happen when we add more power to things. Think of FTL. In FTL, when you upgrade the doors, for example, the first level allows you to have remote control. The next one up to that allows you to lock them, and the one after that gives you blast doors, which are harder to kill. This is kind of the same. So we've got the different tiers. Never minding the fact that I'm getting absolutely destroyed right now. The different tiers allow us to unlock certain things. So in this case, the level 1 turret network gives us missile systems, which are very useful against all vehicles, actually. The explosive damage, in particular, does a lot more damage against armored vehicles. So if you are attacked by armored vehicles, this is a very good sort of last-ditch thing you can do. You also have repair systems, which will allow the carrier to self-repair. And it also allows it to repair units that are nearby, which is actually very useful. So in this case, we've got some light strikes that are defending us. It might actually be beneficial to turn the repair systems on. So you can see repair beams are now on, and they will repair units that are within range. And of course, upgrading that increases the repair speed and so on. So we've actually lost a bunch of our salvages, which is one of the things the AI tries to do very early on. And it is quite annoying, because that's one way of knocking the enemy out of action very quickly. Now, of course, the main objective is to capture the artifacts, but you can also win this mode simply by destroying the enemy carrier. That is a thing you can actually do. So, something to bear in mind. So we're gonna send these salvages back over as well to go and I believe he's actually driving under. Yeah, he actually drove under the carrier.
Salvager online.
Display to that CU field. Alert. Sensor post destroyed.
Like I said, there is an interesting amount of
Carrier repair systems are unavailable.
Red alert. Command carrier taking
interesting
fire.
amount of detail in here. So of course, if we get the power reserve upgrade, we are able to distribute more points into these, which will allow us to do quite a lot of things actually, and can even make the carrier a very viable combat unit if we really want to, but that's kind of taking things to the extreme, and more of a late game sort of thing. As far as strategies go, of course, it's the same as Homeworld 2. I would say this is actually closer to Homeworld 2 in the way that it plays, but then I haven't got a lot of experience with those, so it's a bit difficult for me to say that. One thing that's interesting, now this is not particularly the best idea right now, but I'm going to just show it off anyway. There's the fighter and gunship fabrication. Now in the campaign, these are separated. You have strike fighters, you have bombers, and then you have gunships. In this case, fighter and gunships are put together in the same research, which just helps to streamline things. But once that is actually available, it will actually show.
Deploying field logistics module.
It'll actually show what that can do, because the UI piece doesn't pop up until we have that upgrade. Right, what I've just deployed there is the logistics module. It's a very tiny thing that's very easily destroyed, but what it does is it adds 15 to our fleet capacity, up to a maximum of 125. So these are basically your population cap increases. You have to keep an eye on those, and they do cost resources to deploy, but they're instantly deployed, so that's one thing as well. You can deploy it in a range around your ship, so you can go around there, which is pretty far. So that's one thing that you can do.
Sensors post is under fire.
Aerial strike craft now available for production.
Attention.
Okay, so we've got some strike fighters available now.
Secure the artifacts or fail your people. Hostile forces have recovered an artifact.
We are probably going to lose this, but here we go. So now this has popped up, I can actually show you what this is. So right here we have a hangar module. On this side are all the fighters and bombers, and on this side we have gunships. Now gunships are a little bit different. So here we have one in the hangar. And you can even see the color coding right there will show what actually what's the actual status of that fighter. But all we have to do is actually just click one button, and we can target anywhere. So for example, I want to cover this artifact.
Strike fighter coordinates dialed in.
Strike system
So it'll launch the fighter to that location, and then it'll automatically target. Now, if I want to switch, I can actually do that in flight. So I can change that to target something else. And then the fighter will do its own thing. So that doesn't do, you know, particularly fantastic damage, but
Be advised. Hostile carrier detected. Hostile production cruiser verified. Take it out. The sensors post taking fire.
and of course we can ask it to bail out at any time and return to base. And we're going to do that because the base runners do actually have anti-air capability, which is not what we want to deal with.
Visual unconfirmed. Red alert.
So right now we're not really in an effective position to do anything, realistically speaking. But you can see there are a lot of things that we can actually do still
Sensor post lost.
with this game. So we have all sorts of cruisers as well, and these are sort of late game things. So support cruisers are secondary production,
Position locked in. Secure it.
Listen up. Switch power channel 8 to secondary. Maintain stability.
and in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch one of these salvages over here. It's a little bit hard to explain what's happening while being absolutely pummeled by the AI.
This is the captain.
Strike fighter.
But that's the thing that happens.
Attack course set.
In fact, the carrier is taking some serious damage right now.
Full power.
So yeah, the support cruiser is kind of your
Hostile forces are
your
attacking.
secondary drop-off points. It's your repair unit. It's sort of a all-encompassing support unit, not really built for combat. And then you have a battle cruiser, which is the exact opposite. So it's more of your really heavy anti-ground unit. Assault cruisers are very good against all sorts of ground units, but they are slightly different in the sense that battle cruisers are more, I would say, are more specialized against massed units or groups of units in the sense, and we've already lost while I was explaining that. And you've got your artillery cruiser, which is kind of self-explanatory, but compared between the battle cruiser and assault cruiser, as you may remember from Homeworld 2, it's that the assault cruiser is more of a hit-and-run unit, whereas a battle cruiser is there to kind of fortify your attack force. It's more of a force multiplier, whereas this is kind of more geared towards that sort of raiding tactic. So you can put those together with light strike vehicles very nicely. So what I'm going to do now, since we got our asses handed to us there, is I'm going to switch over to a different type of skirmish mode. In fact, we might even switch to the other map so you can see that one as well. And I'm going to turn off artifact retrieval and go with the sort of classic carrier annihilation mode. So you can play as the coalition again, and against one Gaussian enemy, and I'm going to put it on easy again, so I don't get my arse handed to me too easily. Alright, so apologies if you are a fan of the Homeworld series, because I'm not particularly good at this game. And if this happens to run a little bit long, what I will end up doing is probably cutting the video down and just highlighting the main points from it. Because as is the case with a lot of RTS games, is that the matches do tend to get a little bit long.
Salvager online.
It's going to try and expand out very early as well, trying to get some more resources as we go along. And once that's done, we can start getting a raiding force out. Now this is classic mode, so we are definitely going to be trying to get just a little bit of more of an advantage over the enemy by cutting their supplies as quickly as we can. So just put my rally point over there.
Secure location marked.
Some light strikes out. Now I do want to make one correction earlier. I did say that the repair systems help with our
vehicle in service.
with self-repair of the carrier. That actually isn't true, because that is over here on the armor side of things. So if you put 5 points into armor, it actually allows the carrier to self-repair. The repair systems simply allow it to repair units around it. So that's a slight correction there, but hopefully you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about. So let's get the assault pack for the LAVs as well. Of course, that range there is a little bit far away.
Light attack vehicle in service.
I will need to get a support cruiser out as soon as possible. Alright, let's send these guys out on a little scouting run. Now, if you remember from Homeworld, and I guess Homeworld 2 had this as well, the probe ability that you used to be able to launch from many of your cruisers and so on to scout the enemy bases, that ability still exists. It has been moved somewhat. This is now located on the base runner. So if I want to check where the enemy base is, all I have to do is place a probe there, and it launches itself out. And it works exactly the same way. It sort of hovers around there. Of course, in that case, it got destroyed very quickly, but you get the idea. It's a single use, single direction, but instead of flying off and then self-destructing, it flies off, hovers a little while, and then comes back to the base runner. So that's something that you can do. Now, I'm going to turn the tactical overlay off, which is probably not to my benefit, simply because it is causing some weird effects at the moment.
Alert, salvager lost. Receiving. Be advised. Hostile carrier.
Alright, so that's where the enemy base is. We found the carrier and we found one of the production cruisers, so that's something we're going to have to deal with very, very soon. Alright, that will allow us to build support cruisers once we have the once we have the means to. Of course, the salvagers that I had over there, or rather the one salvager I had over there, was actually killed already.
Light attack vehicle in service.
So I'm just going to stop the carrier doing what it's doing. Let's just add that to the defense systems there.
Weapon systems online.
Alert, support taking hostile fire. Go for support. We've got a salvager under fire. This is the captain.
That might actually be a mistake at this point in time. We do need that support cruiser up.
Enemy contacts on the board.
Of course, if these light attack vehicles decide to start hitting my defenses now, or my resource gatherers now, I'm pretty much screwed. And I think they have done that. They are definitely killing my salvagers now. And not a hell of a lot I can do about it right now.
Listen up. Alert, salvager lost. Alert, support craft has been engaged.
Alright, so that support cruiser will allow us to survive a little bit longer by repairing everything that we have now. It doesn't have the ability to build salvagers though, so that's something we have to bear in mind.
Cruiser under attack. Immediate fire support on that position. Move. All hands. Online. This is the captain.
Just get that AAV fab coming, so we can actually counter these things. So armored assault vehicles are basically the counter to the light strikes, because they have an ability that suppresses them and slows them down. This light strike, on the other hand, is probably not going to do so well, and this production cruiser is about to die as well. So as you can see, getting your ass handed to you from the AI is kind of a routine thing. Of course, I'm pretty sure the Homeworld veterans right now are screaming into their computers at me, which is fair, because I still have not really worked out what I'm doing yet.
We've got a salvager under fire. Alert, salvager destroyed. Sensors post is under fire. Alert, support taking hostile fire.
Now, of course, the base runner can deploy turrets, which might be useful, but not right now. Okay, so hopefully this AAV helps to get rid of these little light assaults that we have down here.
Strike craft destroyed. Unknown inbound. Designating hostile.
You can actually just get a nice little view of what's going on over here, which is quite nice. You can get really up close into it. In fact, I've clipped all the way through it. Yeah, you can get very close.
We've got hostile on sensor.
A lot of nice little detail in all of the units, which is quite nice to see. And of course, as soon as I deploy armored assaults, they deploy armored assaults as well. So the AI does catch up to you very quickly if you try anything. So at the moment, current status, if we have no salvages and if we lose this armored assault, we have basically lost the game already. But I do want to talk a little bit more about the game. So I like some of the changes that they've made and how they've adapted the Homeworld system very nicely to this sort of land-based system instead. Because of course, as we know, Homeworld is a... they're targeting my salvager, yep. Is a, well, a space game, to put it lightly. It's a space RTS where you command a fleet. And, in this case, now it's completely land-based, and I think they've actually done really well. Well, I was trying to get away from them. So this is pretty much lost. I can probably try to decommission this, but it's going to get destroyed, yep. So that's pretty much it, really. I could probably try reloading this and try again, but I have a feeling that me trying to commentate and play this at the same time is going to just cause havoc, really, as it has here, and it's going to lead to the same sort of outcome, really. But hopefully this just gives you a slight taste of what Homeworld Deserts of Kharak is. It's very nicely detailed, I would say, and it plays really well and runs really well. I still probably have to play this a little bit more to fully understand the systems in it, but at this stage, if you're looking for more Homeworld, this is more Homeworld. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you liked the systems in Homeworld, this is more of that, but in a very different sort of style. And personally, I prefer this. But of course, graphically, it looks a little bit dated at times. Although, there are things, if I can just get a look at one of these units here, there is some very nice detail as well. The fact that these sort of strafe around, trying to get a good shot in. The wrecks stay here for really long, in fact. They don't actually cull these, as far as I can tell. Wrecks do tend to stay there for very long. And the amount of detail on things like the carrier, even when you launch, just as an example, when you launch fighters and things, these pads here sort of move up and down.
Keep it steady. Monitor corruption.
And you can see some very nice animations, in fact. Then the fighters themselves sort of fold their wings in and everything. There's a lot of very nice detail. Even look at these little turrets over here as well, although this one's trying to shoot through the carrier for some reason. In fact, it's successfully shooting through the carrier at the moment, which is a bit weird. But overall, it's got a lot going for it. And we need more of RTSs like this, frankly. But sadly, I feel like RTS is a genre that is kind of disappearing. In the same way that my carrier is very slowly disappearing. Could this help to revive the genre? Honestly, I think this is more of an homage to fans of this sort of genre, but I don't think it's going to do anything sufficiently different that will draw people back into the franchise, or even the genre at all. But of course, if you are a fan of the Homeworld franchises, you'll probably appreciate this. I apologize that the visuals right now are not particularly entertaining, but it's just very hard for me to play this game and commentate at the same time, so you get to watch a carrier get destroyed. It's very pretty getting destroyed, but it is still getting destroyed very, very slowly. So, conclusion on this: if you like Homeworld, it's more of that. It's not really a bad thing. And it does transition from space to land really, really well. After all, it is a completely different setting. Story-wise, I'm about a third of the way through it right now. And I would say that the campaign is very well written. I just don't want to show it in case there are any potential spoilers there. But the maps on the campaign are very, very nicely put together, and very atmospheric as well. Things like sandstorms and tornadoes are all that are very beautifully rendered. So overall, that's where the game really shines, is that in the campaign. The cutscenes are all very nicely done as well. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Homeworld Deserts of Kharak. It is now available on Steam, and at present, I don't actually have a price for this because I'm playing this before release. But do check out the actual prices for your current region. And thank you very much for watching. My name is Panzer, and I'll see you next time.
Sound carrier alert. Strike ground. Destroy. Remain in station. Hostile on sensor. Authentication pending.